you post a lot,
Yeah.
in my opinion, to Facebook and Instagram, and you seem like you are like fish in the water what comes to social media. But how do you actually think about social media what comes to artist life?
I go through stages, so you've caught me in a good phase, I think.
Yeah.
Where, you know, over lockdown I've had a bit more time to make stuff and post stuff, but I'll go through phases where I just hate the whole thing and wish I could delete all my accounts and not bother with it.
I have really mixed feelings about using social media, and it's not in like in a good way. It feels like a chore. It feels like a job you need to do, but you don't want to do sometimes.
I feel exactly the same. Yeah, it definitely doesn't come naturally at all. But I realize it's got to be done. Sometimes it really stresses me out. The only part of it that I enjoy is getting to interact with other people. That's the only reason I still do it, is because obviously we kind of need to do it, unless you're like, I don't know, Lady Gaga, and you can afford to just delete your accounts and people will still know who you are. It's when people comment on things and you get to interact with people. That's what social media is for. That's what it's built for, and that's the enjoyable part of it. But then it's just all the algorithms and all that rubbish that it's like,
Yeah,
because you feel like you're working so hard for it, and you really want to. You've made something you really believe in, and you put it out, and to people who are following you because they like what you do and they want to see what you're doing. But Instagram's algorithm just thinks it's not important and just doesn't show it. So, you know, I think it's come to a stage where we need to not take it that seriously. With Instagram and Facebook and things like that, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like it's come to the point where it's one of the only things left that it's just like quantity over quality. Just put out content, maybe not quantity over quality music wise, but just photos and update people. It doesn't have to be a beautiful photograph. Like if you're working on something on Logic, just take a picture of it and just say, I'm working on this today. And I think we don't post stuff because we think it has to be some masterpiece photograph.
having this conversation 20 or 30 years ago, we would be talking about mailing fan letters or responding to fan letters and actually like doing the manual labor, writing the, hey, thanks for liking my music. Here's a picture of me.
Yeah, and like that was so laborious. And then you like, okay, in that sense, you understand why people might have had a team to, you know, you dictate letters to them or they read them out and you'd say, oh, say thank you very much and say this, blah, 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 and I'll sign it. But these days it's so easy to just like something and say thanks. But then you also have, I guess you also have that added stress that if people are loving your music and you have loads of comments on something, you feel like you have to answer them immediately and say thank you and be really thankful. And of course you should be thankful, but you don't have to do it immediately. And it's no, you know, if you answer somebody's lovely message in a week, they're still going to appreciate it. If somebody WhatsApps you or calls you or tweets you or whatever, and you don't answer, you know, you have that worry that they're like, well, the phone's in their pocket and they got a notification. Why aren't they answering me?
Yeah.
But I've, over the past few months, I've started going through phases of leaving my phone off for a day or leaving it off for half a day, or when I'm working, leaving it in a drawer in the house or something, you know, just to...
I usually do composing and practicing and writing in the morning. So every morning I put my old devices to do not disturb mode. So there's no bleeps and blinks and bloinks and...
It's so distracting. It is really distracting. You have to physically do something about it. Yeah.
And the thing about with social media is also that you realize that you need to use it as a tool in your profession to work, but you would still like to like see what your friends are doing and chat with your friends, and like use it as your free time tool.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of mix your two worlds, not probably the most healthy way.
I guess that's just being a musician as well, isn't it? Because you enjoy playing music and you enjoy writing music, but then you've got to do it for work as well. So you kind of like, you finish composing a piece and then you're like, kind of fancy playing guitar, but I kind of don't because I've been doing it all day.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking about guitars, we talked about my instruments last week.
Yes.
In your videos and in your music, it's kind of guitar-driven music, even though it's like vocal music, and that's the idea about you being a singer-songwriter. But you actually play guitar. So what's kind of your relationship to that instrument?
I started playing guitar just to play songs that I really enjoyed when I was really young. So I'd cover folk songs and you know, acoustic pop songs or whatever. It's very sunny.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just picked it up to learn covers, and then got to a point eventually that I wanted to sing some things that nobody else was singing that I wanted to hear. So I started writing songs on the guitar. And the guitar just became a vehicle for me, or like a tool to be able to write songs. So I've never really been one of those people that's really, really into their gear, or really wants a brand new guitar or any specific type of guitar as such. It's just been what sounds best for what I'm trying to do, and I'm happy with that, you know. I want it to look cool, obviously, but but it's always been a tool, you know, a means to an end kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then I've fallen in love with playing it, you know, naturally through doing it over so many years. So I have a few.
Yeah.
But none of them are expensive. That's the thing. They all do exactly what I want them to do.
In your case, where the guitar serves only higher purpose, kind of complement your vocal talent, so there's no, I guess, need for you to buy like vintage Martin or like super expensive Gibson that has these really small nuances and maybe even story if it's like vintage instruments.
Yeah, I think unless you've got millions of dollars, you don't need to buy a Rolls Royce of guitars. Like there'll be a guitar somewhere that sounds equally as fantastic, but it just doesn't have the name or the brand, or, you know, I mean, look at Willie Nelson's old beat up guitar with a hole in it, and he still plays it live. It sounds great. It's his sound.
Yeah.
He's never bought a new one. Like the acoustic guitar that I use all the time is my mum's. It was her guitar, and it's an old Sigma Martin. So I think it was made in 1970.
Right.
And it was like Martin's affordable range of guitars.
Yeah.
And it's just I know you won't be able to hear it properly, but it just sounds so rich. It's the most beautiful sounding guitar ever. And the body is really small. You wouldn't expect it to sound so rich. The resonance in it is just perfect. There's like the right amount of bass.
Yeah.
And like when you mic it up to record it, you don't have to do anything to it. You just, you know, nothing in post-production. It's just you record it and it sounds great.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like the electric that I play is an Epiphone Dot. The day that I bought this, I was trying it on, because I play an Orange amp live, and I was in the shop and I was trying this versus, I was trying to figure out what kind of sound I wanted. So I was playing a Telecaster and this was like £300, and the Telecaster was like $4,000. And like genuinely, this to me, for what I wanted to do, this sounded so much better, like out of this world better than the $4,000 guitar. And but I guess, I wanted something that could do stuff that was slightly rocky, slightly rich and bluesy, and like it had those top ends, but still had that, like, you could be really meaty bottom end on it if you wanted it to be. So yeah, no, I love this guitar.
Nice.
It actually, the headstock, I was on a plane to play a festival somewhere, and I got to the other side, opened the guitar case, and the headstock was completely snapped off.
Yeah.
But somebody fixed it, and it sounds better than it did when it was new. So there's like metal rods in there and everything. It's crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good guitar.
But that's the thing also, that even though you wouldn't play these super old vintage instruments, you still get connected to your instruments, and you start to build like your story with your instruments.
Yeah.
And suddenly that couple $100 worth of guitar becomes really important for you, because there's now common stories that you have, like.
Yeah, totally. If I had to like part exchange one of my guitars for another one, I genuinely feel sad part exchanging it, like giving it to somebody else, not knowing how they're going to treat it, and like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, you do get a connection with them, and they've been all over the world with you, and like,